Presidential candidates squaring off last night in Boulder, Colorado, where one of the night's most heated moments was over the issue of taxes. We want to talk more about the issue on the CNBC Newsline. Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Thanks for jumping on the call, Grover.
Absolutely. Glad to be with you.
I thought this was one of the most substantive issues. Clearly, candidates have sharp differences over their tax policies. Governor Kasich says they're all fuzzy math and none of them make sense, magical thinking. I assume you do not agree. Whose do you like the best?
Well, it's interesting. The thing I think is interesting first is that they're all on the same page. Kasich is as well with his plan. They all reduce rates. They all move towards a flat tax. They all recognize that our corporate and business rates are way out of whack with the rest of the world, much too high compared to Europe or Canada or even China. They all want to move towards a territorial system, and they all want to go to full expensing. They differ in how they get there, how far they go in each case. But the healthy thing for the Republican Party is the agreement on action. Now, that said, I don't see one as overpowerfully better than the others. They all move in exactly the right direction, and the House and Senate are thinking along the same lines. So if you have any of these guys, you will get lower rates, lower business rates, a flatter system, expensing, and territoriality.
But you would also get more debt. According to the Tax Foundation, which analyzed 6 of the presidential plans, they would each add at least $1 trillion to debt.
Well, there are two things. You have to look at how much growth would help. If you grow at 3% a year instead of the 2% a year that we've been doing under Obama, you end up with $2.8 trillion for each year for 10 years, 1 decade. You get $2.8 trillion more revenue coming in. So you can cut taxes quite a bit if those tax reductions get you higher growth up to 2 or 4%. While we are talking taxes, obviously the regulatory additions, the costs of regulations under the Obama years and under the Bush years, sadly, have really slowed economic growth down. And one of the ways to get faster growth, which brings in more revenue, is to focus on regulations.
Grover, as the Wall Street Journal editorial points out today, you also had, of course, great candor on entitlement reform, and a lot of the candidates united on that front as well, in sharp contrast to what you would hear from Hillary Clinton. Christie and Bush honest in saying, as the Journal puts it, that there will have to be means testing moving forward. The question remains for the party, who is the best person to sell entitlement reform to the middle ground, to the independents in this country?
Well, the answer to that was just made Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan has done on entitlement reform and overall budgeting what Jack Kemp did on supply-side economics. It was a one-man project under Jack Kemp to convince the party and the country and the world about reducing rates, and it was a one-man project with Ryan, who has convinced the entire Republican caucus in the House to move towards those reforms.
But what I'm asking you, I mean, he's clearly unable to run and for some time, presumably, now that he's Speaker. My question really is about outside the party. Who do you think can best sell entitlement reform against Hillary Clinton, presumably, to everybody else?
Oh, well, this is going to be one where there are going to have to be 1,000 voices. It's not going to be one person. The good news is every single Republican in the House, less about 7 people, have voted up to 5 times for the Ryan budget plan, which does all of these entitlement reforms. So you have whole platoons out there talking to people. This is where the Tea Party could come back together with a focus that was completely helpful and forward-looking. I think the outside groups and the grassroots groups, this is the perfect project for all of us.
Question on corporate tax reform, Grover, which matters a lot to a lot of the executives that we talk to here. Obviously, Larry Kudlow is a fan of Donald Trump's plan that lowers the corporate tax rate to 15%. What is a realistic lowering of the corporate tax rate, which most of the Republican presidential candidates argue is not competitive with the rest of the world?
Correct. We're at 35. The European average is 25. We need to get, but we're at 35 federal plus 4.9% average state corporate income tax. We're really at 40, not 35, when you include state and local. We need to take our federal level down at least to 20% to be middling competitive. And it's quite correct that Trump's 15% is exactly where we need to go. 15 is a better number than 20.
Grover Norquist, thanks for joining us to talk taxes. As always, America's for tax reform.